What happens usually when a man dies is that after about 4 years, his books stop selling. But he said, sometime you have a resurrection like Sir Walter Scott is having right now, you know. But I said, you don't have to worry. And he said, what is this about an American secretary who just tells me I don't need to worry? And I said, the reason you don't need to worry is because your books are so good and your readers are not that stupid. I remember that right after he died, I went into Blackwell's, and I saw a whole table of his books remaindered. And I thought, this calls for a fight.
C.S. Lewis lived a very full and busy life, but here's the thing. He didn't spend a lot of time recording that life. I mean, he didn't even own copies of most of his own books. And that's what Walter Hooper did for us. He gathered together the various bits and pieces, the scraps, the accomplishments, the memories, the events, the conversations of Lewis's life. He gathered them together, and then he ordered them, he stitched them together, and he put them out there so that we could hear those stories. So instead of just a book here and a book there, an essay here or a sermon, we have instead a comprehensive picture of what Lewis's legacy really included. You need someone who puts the energy, the time, the vision, the persistence into gathering up the bits and telling their story. That's Walter's legacy. That's Walter's gift to us.
There's something very ironic about Walter in that when he came into the life of C.S. Lewis and Warnie, those brothers didn't think that anybody would ever want to read Lewis's stuff. They didn't think it was important. But Walter knew this is important. This is going to have to be preserved.
He was kind, he was gentle, he was pure in his devotion, not only to Lewis, but also to the Lord. He always had time for everyone. And that's one of the things that I want to carry with me about Walter. And he reminds me of the kind of selfless service that Christ calls all of us to.
So I never met Tolkien until 1967, you know. We talked a lot, you know. He almost broke my heart. He said, I know you miss Jack Lewis, and I'm so sorry he's died. But I said, but you knew him far better than I did. So, you know, you had more invested in him. And he said, no, I have a long, long friendship with him. But you were just getting to know and love him. Because the two of you were meant to be, you know.
Probably the major trait I saw in him was his wonderful, marvelous sense of humor. One day he phoned me, and I was standing in what we call Joy's room. As I was in there, a cat kept trying to come in the window, a stray cat, and I was chasing him out. And Walter said, now, Debbie, you know that's Warnie reincarnated as a cat. And I said, Walter. And he said, well, Warnie died in that room. He's just trying to get back in. My very favorite memory of Walter walking up the little garden path to the front door of the Kilns, and he would chuckle and he would say, Debbie, is Warnie here today?
I've got a wonderful picture of old Tom sitting there with Paxton. I was with Lewis when Mrs. Miller, the housekeeper, called him into the kitchen. And she said, you know, old Tom was a great mouser in his day, but he's lost all his teeth. Now, Mr. Jack, because he can't catch mice anymore, do you mind if I have him put down? He said, Mrs. Miller, old Tom is a pensioner, so you are to cook fish 3 times a week and debone it, keep it in the refrigerator for old time. And then that same day, a few hours later, we were walking down the path leading down to Kill Lane, and we passed Old Tom, and Louis took off his hat and whispered to me, "He's a pensioner."
Walter was the quintessential gentleman and a stalwart man of letters. Kind, humble, funny, tender-hearted, quick-witted, brave, and enduringly faithful, giving us a clear picture of what it looks like to carry ourselves well as a public figure, but also giving us probably one of the best embodiments of what we would have seen in Louis himself, and that's profoundly important.
He would say, "You think far too highly of my books." And I said, "You think too lowly of them." So I think we're about even. When I was occasionally just trying to thank him for something, and if he didn't like excessive thanks, he would say, "Walter, I think what you're trying to say is thank you." And that's what I still am trying to say. Thank you.